so welcome to this tutorial I have done. This is a set of nails done on my cousin recently. She dared to come to me with someone else's nails on. She had a trip to New York, and about 3 days before she had to go, she asked for an appointment, and unfortunately all the times I could do, she couldn't, so she'd gone to someone else. So we have removed the previous set, filed off, and then I'm just going on and placing some tips on. Now, some people often ask why I choose tips over sculpting or vice versa. The reason we're tipping today is because for some reason Nikki works better with tips. Whenever I sculpt, she tends to break them every 2 days, but if I put tips on, she has no problems, so we now always tip her nails. So I'm just applying these Pro Impressions Advanced Clear. These are the plain ones, not the competition ones. I've got a video as well. I will pop the link in the description below for my tip application, which has that more in depth for you. I'm just applying these tips on, and then I'm just going to cut them down. As most of you know, I don't file my tips in. I will just cut, and then I use my scissors to just nip a rough shape, and then the filing is all done at the end. So I just carefully use my scissors to just kind of nip the right shape there. And I've double timed this just to save a little bit of time. As I said, I will pop a link below in the description with my full tip application video. Okay, so once the tips are on, I'm then going to come in and I'm going to use my NSI Nail Pure Plus and dehydrate the nails. So I'm using 2 different pads. I'm really scrubbing those nail plates, and then I'm coming in with my CJP Acid Primer, dabbing out the excess and just using that one brush to apply on all of the nails. So the first nail I'm going to do is my geometric design. So I'm placing a thin clear base on the nails, so they're kind of ready to go with the designs I want to do. As you can see, I'm using red and black in this design, so you want to make sure you definitely put a thin clear base down, even though they're strength powders. Colours that have that high pigment and strong colour can very easily dye the nail plate, stain the nail plate. Can't get my words out today. So I'm just getting thin base on all of those nails. And I can go back to the first one I did because that'll be nice and dry. And I'm going to create a glitter fade panel. So I'm going to come in with my silver first of all. That cuticle area, blend about halfway down the nail. I want to keep the line relatively straight, but I'm going to file it in later. I'm then going to pick up a red bead, or a bead of red glitter, and then I'm going to put that on the bottom half, and then just blend in the middle. Just dabbing a little bit of that red glitter up and a little bit of that silver glitter down, so you get a nice blend between the two colours there. I'm going to come in with a bead of clear acrylic, so I'm taking a nice amount of liquid out of the back of that bead, placing near the cuticle area there, going back into that cuticle shape, and then making sure I keep those side walls nice and straight and crisp. I'm going to gently pull that bead down that nail and cap the glitter. Now, I don't want to cap too thin because this is a geometric design, so I want to keep it the thickness I will want the nail. So as you can see, I'm just patting, tapping, pulling that down, making sure it covers all that glitter. Now when you're working on a longer nail, you might need to come in with a second bead of acrylic. But if you're lucky, like I was, it just about came all the way down and encapsulated that. And as you can see, the entire time I was making sure those side walls were nice and straight. Even once it's set, I'm going to file it in, but if you're making sure it's as straight as possible with your brush, then you don't need to worry too much. There's less filing. Just popping a little bead on the tip there, just to make sure all that glitter is fully encapsulated. Sometimes by the time you get to the end of the nail, that acrylic's a little drier. So a little bead just to make sure it's all adhered and all stuck together. Then realised I wanted some different cuts of glitters as well, so I've got some of my holographic chunky cut out as well as the multi-cut that I'd used there. This was a design that very much kind of developed as I was working on the nails. So she said she wanted red and black and we just kind of went from there. So on this now I'm going to do an ombre. So I'm picking up a bead of black, taking a bit of the liquid out of the back of the bead. I want a nice solid colour. And then I'm just gently feathering up, and I'm going to very gently feather and pull up. Now when working with black, especially on an ombre, less is definitely more. As you can see, this colour will really travel. So you don't need much, which is why normally on an ombre I'd start on the smile line, but with this one I started a little lower down, because I knew that as I moved the colour up it would still be a nice deep colour. And then coming in with my CJP Vamp, which is a lovely deep red. Getting it nice and tidy around that cuticle area. And then I'm just going to kind of pat it a bit down because I want a decent solid colour before I then blend. And then blend it down over that black. Now these darker colours can be quite tricky to ombre. So if you work in nice thin layers, it's a lot easier to get that ombre that you want. So obviously if you start quite thick, then you're going to struggle if you need to add a little bit more. So I just added a tiny bit of wet black, blended it up. See, as I'm blending it back down, I'm making sure I wipe my brush in between each one, because you'll get black on your brush and you need to make sure that's not going to keep coming back up the nail. I'm going to use my wet brush, just pick up a little bit of that holographic chunky cut glitter in black. I'm using it quite sparingly. I'm happy with my ombre, so I don't feel the need to hide it with glitter. I just want to enhance it with glitter. Whereas sometimes it's a good trick to have. If you've done an ombre and you're not 100% happy with it, you can mask it a little bit with glitter. A little cheat for you there. And then I'm going to cap that entire nail in crystal glass. So, as I always do, popping that bead just in front of the cuticle, gently pushing back, and then pat, tap, pulling it forward. Gently taking it down to the end of the nail and any excess. Putting it back up the nail, or just kind of swiping it off the edge with my brush. All that glitter has gone nice and matte, and I know that's all encapsulated. a little bit there, it was a little uneven, so I added a tiny bit more. Making sure, especially when working with tips, that if you're taking any excess off the end, it's not going underneath and sticking to the underside of the tip. Then moving on to the pinky. This one I'm doing a full nail of red. Again, these are design powders, so I could use them as a full nail, but I like to be a bit stingy with my colour powders, so I'm going to use these more as a design. So I'm getting nice and close to that cuticle area and just creating that nice solid red base. And then using my wet brush to pick up some of that black holographic chunky glitter and placing randomly on the nail. And this is, I always refer to this as like my eggshell kind of nails, because you end up with like that speckled effect like an eggshell. And capping that nail in crystal glass, starting a little in front of the cuticle, gently pushing back and then just tapping, patting and pulling it forward. And just placing that pinching tool on that middle finger, ring finger, sorry. And then coming in on the pointer finger. Same as on that little finger, but on this one we're doing it with the black acrylic. So almost painting it on to get that nice solid colour. Then using my wet brush to just pick up a little bit of that silver chunky cut holographic glitter from the Glitter Fairy and tapping that in to the wet acrylic. And then I'm going to cap that entire nail in crystal glass. Making sure all that glitter goes nice and matte so you know it's all been encapsulated. And just pat, tap, pulling it down, creating that shape and structure that you want. And take your time while the acrylic's nice and pliable to get that nice shape so that filing is kept to a minimum. moving that pinching tool over. And then going onto the thumbnail. On the thumbnail we've done an ombre, but I've done it in the opposite way to the other nail. So we're starting with black at the top. And then just gently blending that down. Keeping that cuticle area nice and thin. And then coming in with that Vamp. Now I want the most solid colour, obviously I need to get a nice blend. So I'm getting my blend in first, and then I'm going to pat and pull that down the nail. So that's another thing people often ask me, is why I start an ombre from the bottom. So I often start it from the tip of the nail. So this time I started it from the top. And then again, just coming in with a small amount of that chunky glitter. And then capping that nail in crystal glass. Moving that pinching tool across, and then I'm using my 100 grit file and I'm pushing against that central acrylic, not down onto the nail, pushing it against that central acrylic to get a nice crisp line in my glitter panel. I'm just using my brushy bit to remove as much of that dust as I can, so there's not going to be any dust and debris when I'm working on that nail. And then I'm going to do some ombres in the side panels. So I'm going to start with a small bead of black at the tip, blending up, and then I'm going to get the red from the cuticle area and blend down. Now I will say, you will notice after the filing and in the decoration video that unfortunately I pinched this nail a little too early. So it smudged one side, well, smushed one side of the acrylic. So you can see a really solid black line because I took the pinching tool off, put another bit of red on, but unfortunately it had kind of scrunched up the black so that when I then filed the red it showed through. Now normally I would have filed that off and done it again. Unfortunately my cousin was on quite a time schedule, so we did not have time to redo it. But I just wanted to point out If you wonder why it's there, it was not intentional. I messed up. And I'm not worrying about putting acrylic over that central panel, because obviously when I file it in, it's similar to when you do your smile lines. It'll all come through nice and crisp. Okay, so that's the first video done. I will put a link below for the second video, so you can come and join me to see how I did all the decoration. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much for all your support. Don't forget to add any questions, comments or requests in the description below. So thanks for tuning in. Bye!